Investment Strategies for Africa.
Hello everyone. Well, it's me again here talking at the Startup and Investors panel. So right now we have a really interesting topic that I'm really excited to learn more about, since being completely honest, it lacks on my behalf. So right now we're going to talk a little bit about investment strategies for Africa. I have a really amazing guest that has been in this space for a really long time as a founder and as an investor itself. Please, could you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you're doing in both areas?
For sure, and thank you for that introduction. So my name is Mouloukou. I am an investment manager at AIBC, which is a $100 million fund backed by Cardano. We're one of the largest and most active emerging market investors. We've done around 30 deals in Africa last year. Also did some fund investments. And I also run a startup called Cassava Network, which is essentially a platform that helps brands build their communities through rewards, NFTs, and games.
Amazing, thank you so much. So to start off, I would like to get an overview about the African continent when it comes to crypto as well. I feel like a lot of people don't have this knowledge yet. Africa and emerging markets in general. So if you could give us the macro view, that would be great.
For sure. So I think the trends in emerging markets are quite similar. You know, you have high currency inflation, devaluation, the financial system doesn't usually work. So from my bank account in Hong Kong, I can't send money to Nigeria because it's on the blacklist, right? And also some countries in South Asia or countries in Latin America even, right? But on the flip side of things, you have one of the world's largest youth populations. So 70% of people in these continents are under the age of 30, right? You have high mobile phone penetration. Everybody has a phone or even two phones, right? And you have a large and growing like tech scenes, right? So you have so many like unicorns like that have come out of Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa as well, right? And these have created the perfect environment for both tech and crypto like to strive in these markets, right? For example, in Africa, right? Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa have the world's highest ownership of crypto per capita, right? And they usually, as well, are ranked the highest, like when it comes to crypto adoption, right? And these are the reasons, right? So yeah, at the fund, like we're investing in companies like that are solving solutions, like when it comes to payments, when it comes to infrastructure, or like even things on content, right? Because like we believe that when you focus on solving these problems, you can really hit critical mass and you can really hit scale, right? Like because this is not only an African problem, but this is an emerging market problem, right? So in our view and our thesis is that Web3 needs emerging markets and not the other way around, right? Because if you think about it, right, when I'm in Europe and I want to send money to someone, I just use Revolut. It comes in a second, right? But if I'm in Nigeria and I want to send money to somebody in Benin, right, and Benin is only like an hour away, it takes 3 days, right? I can take my car and travel there and get the money there faster, right? So yeah, I really believe that like Web3 and crypto can really help these economies develop.
Exactly. You mentioned emerging markets in general. Brazil is one of the biggest markets when it comes to NFTs. And a lot of people don't even have bank accounts itself. So it's a really conflictive market in general. So people have a really huge crypto adoption. They're really interested in that, but they don't even have the bank accounts itself, which has been around for how many decades or centuries. So great. Well, you were mentioning before a couple of the trends like infrastructure and payments, but could you dive in more about what are the trends right now in Africa and the crypto environment in general, so we can understand it?
For sure. So like a lot of companies are using stable coins, especially for like remittance, right? So the example like that I mentioned earlier, right? So I think in 2021, $60 billion was sent in remittance to the African continent, right? And according to the World Bank, it costs around 10% on average in fees, right? So that's $6 billion like in fees that guys like Western Union and MoneyGram are like charging, right? But like a lot of companies are using stable coins like in the background, right? And like charging less than like 1%, and getting like the money like at a faster rate, right? And you're seeing like a lot of like payment like infrastructures as well, right? So like it's happened to me so many times, like where I've tried to pay with my Visa card, like at a shop or even at a really fancy restaurant, anywhere like in Africa, and it gets rejected, right? Even though I do have money in my account, and I know the money is there, right? But yeah, so like even the like payment networks like don't work, right? So like a lot of the companies that we've been investing in have been innovating like in that space, right? Have been like developing their own like payment like infrastructure, right? So like either from like crypto like to like fiat, like or straight from like or like straight from fiat like to like crypto, right? So we're seeing these like innovations, right? Or like even with like NFTs, right? Like to prove like ownership, or like blockchain, like in the land registry, right? Like we've also invested like in a few companies that are tokenizing like real estate, right? So that everybody can get access to like real estate, right? Or like even fractionalizing shares, right? So that you can buy like US stocks or like EU stocks or whatever stocks at like even like $1, right? So yeah, so it's essentially, right, like democratizing the financial system, right? And like allowing millions of people to access goods and services that they haven't been able to before.
Great, thank you so much. On this topic of democratizing, I want to understand more. So what are the challenges that African startup founders face, and how should we overcome those barriers?
Okay, so like I think, right, like the biggest challenge is exposure, right? So I think like there's a really big misconception about like Africa like in general, right? Like people still think like we live in huts or like we have lions like walking around, right? But yeah, so like it's like the more like exposure, right? And like a deeper like understanding of like the tech ecosystem, right? So for example, right, like African startups raised $6 billion, and Stripe made its largest ever acquisition of a Nigerian company like 2 years ago. But not many people know this, right? Like it's because there hasn't been that much like media attention, right? And like that's why like it's important to have like panels like this, right? So people are like educated, and like people are aware of the different like opportunities like that we have, right? And I think, right, it's not only like an African issue, but it's more of an emerging market issue, right? Like so everything in tech, right? Like the money, the attention is like mostly focused like on the West, right? So like I think that like founders in like emerging markets need more like attention, right? And that's why like we need to build our own media houses, right? Like we need to have our own conferences, right? Like we need to, like make more noise as well, right? And then I think the second thing as well is mainly like regulations, right? So like regulations are a bit slower to like catch up in emerging markets than they are like in the West, right? Like which is a good thing, and like which is also like a bad thing, right? But like I think in general, like as they say, hard times make great people, right? So I think that in emerging markets, right, that's where you really find the like innovation, right? Like because we don't have all the technologies, or we don't have all the systems or the funding that like others have, right? So we essentially have to create with what we are provided, right? And like that's why like you're seeing like some like specific like innovations like coming out of Latin America, like, or coming out like out of like Africa, right? So before, like it used to be people like would copy like what they see in the West, right? Like, but now like they're making localized innovations that are being brought all over.
Amazing, thank you so much. Lastly, since our time is running a bit, I would like to know, as a VC investor yourself, one of the success cases of your portfolio right now that came from Africa.
For sure. So one of my favorite companies that I invested in is a company called Fondbank, right? So currently on the African continent, you have around like 375 million that are underbanked or underserved, right? But what do they have? Everybody has a mobile phone, right? So Fondbank essentially allows you to change your prepaid mobile credits into USDC, right? Like which provides like the fastest and the easiest on-ramp, right? So if you have a mobile phone, like you can buy USDC, right? And then you can start transacting like over crypto, right? And they've done extremely well. I think they currently have over 250,000 wallets and have a GMV of over like 10 million, right? Like yearly, right? And that just keeps on increasing, right? And that's an example of the type of like African-based like innovations, and this can be brought over to like Brazil, for example, where there's a lot of like underserved on the bank, or like even Southeast Asia, right? So yeah, so like these are the type of things that we're investing in, and like these are like what we are like looking forward to as well.
So real world use cases, right?
Exactly.
That's what we're needing right now in crypto especially. Mouloukou, thank you so much for your time. Thank you
Thank you.
for showing an overview of the market for us, a huge market that people are overlooking right now. It's really important to have people like you to come here to events and explain it to us. And yeah, any final words?
Anybody that doesn't have an Africa strategy or an emerging market strategy doesn't have a strategy at all. So I'm going to stop it there.
Amazing, thank you.